Hey, good morning and welcome to Art with Lee. This is a new channel. I have 1 subscriber. It's going great. I'm going to start today with a new painting, and it's going to be like a lake or river. I haven't decided yet, with trees and foliage and water and everything. And I made the mistake of doing a video of a previous painting, and it lasted an hour. Now, no one is going to sit there and watch an hour-long video. So what I'm going to do is try and break this painting down into 3 parts. So the first will be the top line, sky, trees, bushes, etc. Part 2 will be the water, and part 3 will be anything that's left to paint. So without waffling on too long, I'm going to crack on with part 1, and in this video we're going to be looking at how I do the foliage and the trees. Now, I've only been painting for 8 months, so I am a beginner. So this is not a this is how you should do it, this is a how I do it video, and it's good for me because I can look back and see where I went wrong and if I can learn from mistakes. So anyway, enough of this, let's get down to the canvas. So I've started by blocking in colour for the top section. This is going to be where the water is, and I've sort of split the canvas, the board, into 2. So this is going to be the top, the trees, this is going to be the lake, the water, etc., that I'll come on to in part 2. And this is really a mixture of colours in different shades. There's no detail to it, but it's a mid-tone. So what I will do after this is go over with the darker tone to create the shadow, and then on top of that I will add the lighter tone, which is the highlights, if you like, and that's the part that really makes it stand out. And so I've done the blocking in, and I should have filmed it, but I got a bit carried away. But it looks, you know, you understand the principle. It's literally grabbing a brush and then just dabbing in a mixture of greens, yellow ochre, all sorts. You want a darker strip down the bottom because that's where most of the shadow tends to live. So this bit obviously needs to be darker down here, and then just going up onto the hillside. With this I'm using, it's actually Mars Black, but it's got a little bit of sap green mixed in with it as well. So that should give you some good shadow, and that can just encroach up a little bit there. And I apologise if my hand is covering the camera when I'm doing this. I'm not very experienced at doing it or videoing it, but there you go. So you get the gist of what I'm trying to do there. So in terms of the darker tones, and I'm not going to film all of this because you know it can go on forever. So I'm just gonna, this is a really coarse brush that I've actually cut, so it's a little bit irregular. I've got a pair of scissors to it, and I find that it works really well. And just to tap in little highlights, but you don't want to have too much paint on this. You just want to lightly tap it just to get highlights. Sorry, not highlights, lowlights on it, like that. Very little paint on it. You follow the same principle all the way through. I want this bit to be quite light here, so I'm not going to put too much. Not going to put too much on there. And then these are going to be conifers hiding in the background just here, I think. And I've got a basic format of what the shape will be, and then we'll add the detail to that at a later date. And so I'm hoping this shows up on the camera. So I'm going to carry on doing that and get all of this done with the darker tone, and then after that we'll start looking at what we do with the lighter tone, because I need the colours established on the top before I can start doing reflections on the bottom, because if I did reflections like this, it wouldn't reflect when it's finished with the lighter tones, if that makes sense. So I'm going to carry on and get this finished. Now for the highlights I use exactly the same principle. So I'm taking a bit of sap green, but not too much paint on the brush. I'm just going to lightly dab the areas. If you put too much paint on, it's not the end of the world, because you know there are always dark spots, light spots, shadows, and also when you're doing this, what you don't paint is as important as what you do paint, because the shadows are just as important as the foliage on the tree. And so I'm just going to take a slightly different colour and change now. I'm going with a bit of yellow ochre and green earth colour, which is this. I'm just going to pop in some highlights down here. Just need a bit more colour on that. This acrylic paint dries so quickly in the warm weather. So I'm just going, dabbing in some highlights there. Let's pop a bit of water in the paint, just to loosen it up a bit. And it doesn't have to be uniform. It's all very random, but I like it when you get a light colour, like the yellow ochre, that has the dark behind it, because it really shines through. Just lightly touch it. If you go too heavy anywhere, it really doesn't matter, because you can change things as you go along. So if you see what I'm doing, I'm leaving some areas darker. The temptation is just to fill the whole thing, but you do have to put the brakes on. So I'm going to carry on and do a bit more of this, and then we'll come back and I'll finish the rest. So when I'm doing this, I tend to just work on layers, just layer upon layer upon layer. And what I like to do when I've done a couple of layers is to use a really bright, vivid yellow. Now, I don't even know what yellow this is, but it's really bright. It's quite a cheap one from Hobbycraft, and this colour really makes everything stand out. So I want to apply some of this across the top and just sort of filtering down the tree. Making sure I leave plenty of that dark and less of the yellow as you go down, because it's getting a bit dark down there. So just a few little spots, and as you work your way down, there's less paint on the brush, so it works quite well, like so. And that makes the tree just sort of start to come to life. Now I'm going to do the same on this side. Just delicate little taps, because I don't want it to be too overpowering, but it does give you a good, I don't know, like a break from one set of trees to another. And so by doing this on this section, it just makes it pop out, I guess, which is what I'm trying to achieve. And no trees are just one shade of green, are they? You get a whole variety of colours mixed in, depending on the way, I suppose, the light shines on it. I don't know. As I said before, I'm not an expert, but I think that starts to bring everything to life. So I'm going to go over again with a slightly lighter tone on top of everything, and when we come back, we'll be ready to do a little bit more detail. So now I need to start thinking about how I'm going to position the lake, because I don't want this whole thing just to be a lake. I'm going to leave this top part to dry off properly for the time being, because there's more detail that needs to go on here, and little branches and twigs and all things like that. But also I've found that with acrylics, you put the colour on, it's bright, but then it just sort of dampens down as it dries. So I will go over some of these highlights again, and just to give some of the trees more shape and a bit more detail on the tops, but that will come later. So I think now, as Bob Ross would have said, bless him, it's time to make some decisions. I think I'm going to have the lake sort of arching round from this direction. So we're going to have, I'm just going to roughly do it for now, just to get an idea before I fill it all in. Going to have maybe a bank just there, coming around maybe a bit further, like so. We don't want it to be too uniform. I don't know, that will do for now. And on the other side, I want the river to sort of go round a little bit, so it comes round here like so, and then stretches out into the main area of the painting. This is just giving me an idea of how I want this to progress. And I think this can come out a little bit here as well. And on the base at the bottom, I never like to finish it with lake. I always like to have something there, so there will be something going on around here. I don't know. With the paintings that I do, I tend to like to finish with bushes and shrubs and, you know, little plants that will pop up over the lake. So that gives me an idea of how, excuse me, I want the lake to go. I'm just going to play around with this for a little while till I'm really happy with it, and then I'll start blocking in these sections. Right, now I have blocked in the edge of the river or lake. I haven't decided whether it's a river or lake actually. It's probably more like a lake because there's nowhere for it to go from here, but it doesn't matter really. So when this is dry, I'm going to be adding detail to the bank. We're going to have sort of like a sandy, muddy patch where it meets the water, and then maybe some bushes in here, and we maybe have a tree or two up there, and the same here. I think we'll have some rocks and maybe some pebbles that sort of just drift into the lake a little bit. So we're going to have a lot more detail going on here, so there's a lot of work to do, but now I can visualize what I'm trying to do. The next big step is to do the lake. Now I've left this deliberately white, and the lake is going to form part 2 of this painting. So for part 1, I'm just going to do the tops of these trees, get a little bit more detail on there, and rather than doing one big long painting that does the whole thing that lasts for an hour, or video, sorry, that lasts for ages, I'm going to leave part 1 with the trees pretty much finished. I mean, I always go back to it and add more detail. I just can't stop myself, but I think that's what we do, isn't it? When we're painting, we never know when to stop. So the next I'm going to do is tackle the treetop area, and to do that I tend to use this thin brush. It's a rigger brush, but it's quite a thick one. I have ordered an ultra fine rigger brush, and I'm really excited to get that for doing grass and really fine detail, because this is probably a bit too thick for doing sort of branches and the tree and so on. And I have got thinner brushes, but they're quite short bristle and they tend not to hold the paint, and it just doesn't flow as well. I don't know why, but you know, that's something that will come with experience, isn't it? So I'm going to mix up a bit more paint and start doing the top. So all I'm doing with this is making it look as if they are trees, because at the moment it's quite a hard finish to the edges. So it's just, I don't know, making it look a little bit more natural. And for this I'm using Hooker's Green, and it is a bit darker, but that really isn't a problem, because you tend to find tree lines that sort of encroach into the sky tend to be a bit darker, and you can come down into this as well. So, and it's just very randomly just making it look a little bit less uniform. And it doesn't, you know, there's no wrongs or rights with this, as I keep telling myself, especially when I make mistakes. You know, you just have to do it and go with it, and it's the only way you learn. It's the only way I've learned. I've made loads of mistakes and still do. On every painting I make big mistakes, but I think you learn from that, and you then work out ways to put it right. And I think that's part of the learning process. It is for me. You know, there's been many a time when I've done a painting and had to completely paint over a section because it just doesn't look right. And the thing I've struggled with previously is water, you know, the colour of the water. And on a previous painting, I think I posted it on the Facebook group, I literally had to completely repaint the water 3 times because I couldn't get the colour right. Now, this looks like it's standing out a bit at the back, but it's fine because you can go over with detail and just sort of blend it all in with the foliage that it comes up against. But I do like to use this green as a starting point to try and get just a little bit of definition. And then I think when I've done this, I tend to step back and look at it, because what I tend to do is everything is the same height, and that's just how things go, I suppose. It must be my OCD mind. I like things symmetrical. I like things to be just so, but the real world isn't like that, is it? So this can take a while. So I'm going to continue and go right across to the end, and then I need to do some detail on these trees in the middle. So I'm going to carry on doing the tree tops, and then we'll come back, we'll have a look at these. Right, well, I've done the tree tops, and I've decided I'm not going to blend them in because it kind of looks as if they are in the background and it pushes this forward a little bit. So I'm going to keep these because these can be like trees in the background, so I'm not going to blend them in. I just need to put just a little bit, but not too much detail on these trees here, and I'm not going to put a lot of paint in. I just want to dab a few spots of paint just to give sort of different shades as we go along, and that sort of ties in with these trees that are in the background that sort of come down and end here. So I think that from that perspective, I think it works quite well. Don't need a lot on these because I quite like the way they look. I am going to darken these a little around the base where there's not a lot of light, I guess. I'm going to leave these how they are. I think I might just put a couple of spots on top of them. Just maybe pop some tops on them. Well, this is when I really need that ultra fine brush. Sorry, I've gone quiet. I'm concentrating. You have to be so careful not to go too far with something. I think we'll just have a little darker shade towards the back of them. But other than that, I'm not going to do a great deal more. Okay. Yeah, I'm pleased with that. It's coming along nicely. So the next thing I need to do is, I'm ignoring the bottom completely, is just to go over some of these highlights again, and then I need to put some twigs and trunks in. But I'm tempted to wait until I get my ultra fine rigger brush to do that. So I might leave that for now, but I am going to go over with a bit more highlight, and then I will leave the twigs and trunks until the next video. So just grab the trusty old butchered brush that I made. It really does work well. I've seen similar brushes for sale, but it's always nicer if you make your own, isn't it? I'm going to go back to, this bright yellow with no name from Hobbycraft, because it really does do the trick. Make sure the brush is quite dry, and then just tap into a little paint. The palette's filthy, so I'll put the paint on and then take most of it off by dabbing it on the side, and then just come in, just pop in some highlights again. I've done this already, but as I said before, the colour does tend to fade, and I find that the more highlights you put on, it just defines individual trees or shrubs. I'm not going to go mad with this. Just want to have a bit of highlight on the top of these here. And when it starts to look a bit too much of a straight line, just go up a bit in places just to break it up. These look especially good when you've got dark behind it, like so. And just a few brighter patches here and there, just where it catches the light. And as you do the layers, it really does show up, because you get the different shades behind it in different tones and different colours, and I think it looks really effective, in my humble opinion. Okay, sometimes it's good just to stop, take a break, come back, have a look at what you've done, because I could keep going with this highlighting, but it would end up being too much. So now is a perfect time to stop. So I'm going to wrap up part 1, and in part 2 I'm going to be tackling the lake. So that's a big challenge, because we've got a lot of different colours, a lot of reflections, the exciting bit, but the stressful bit. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed watching part 1, and if you have, do me a favour, click like, and I have 1 subscriber, so maybe you can be number 2. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and in the meantime, you all take care, my friends. Bye bye now.